What if cartoon characters had domain expansion just like in Jujutsu Kaisen? Have you ever thought about how strong the Omnitrix wielder Ben 10 would be? Vilgax would definitely be scared out of his mind. Or imagine the impact Finn or Jake would have against the Lich in the land of Wu. Just imagine how easy it would be for Mordecai and Rigby to solve their problems with those guys who want to destroy the park using a domain expansion. Well, these and many other expansions are what you'll see today. But look, the craziest expansion is at the end. Can you guess whose it is? Well, let's start with the expansion of the hero of the universe, Ben 10. With his insane Omni Nexus expansion, unlike a regular closed domain, this one manifests as an organic cyberspace where DNA is the currency. In his expansion, the guaranteed hit effect goes beyond master control. Ben no longer needs to turn the watch. Within the domain, he becomes an amalgam entity. Ben can fuse all the DNAs from his watch into a single body simultaneously. He can have the strength of 4 arms, the speed of XLR8, the intangibility of Ghost Freak, and the atomic control of Atomix all at once. Ben has genetic overriding. If Ben touches the opponent, the domain tries to reformat the enemy's DNA, turning them into a harmless creature or into a mass of unstable protoplasm. In exchange for this absolute power, Ben's binding vow causes the Omnitrix to enter critical recharge mode for 24 hours after the domain closes, leaving Ben human and vulnerable. If you thought this hero's expansion was insane, let's now take a look at the expansion of the hero from Earth U, Hall of Ages. When Finn's domain is opened, he and his opponent are placed in a vast field of endless grass under a starry sky, where Finn's past incarnations orbit around them. Around them, thousands of swords that Finn used throughout his entire adventure. And not only that, swords that can be manipulated by him, meaning Finn can guide them as an extension of his body, being able to summon and wield all his swords simultaneously. Grass Sword, Finn Sword, the Demon Blood Sword, and many others. The Grass Sword specifically becomes an unbreakable extension of his body. Each strike dealt by Finn ignores physical resistance and attacks directly the spiritual essence of the target. While in his domain, Finn is immune to mental damage or soul manipulation. If he falls, one of his past lives takes over the body for 30 seconds, restoring his cursed energy. I want to see the Lich face him now, but there is no Finn without Jake. So, let's talk about the expansion of our favorite magic dog. Jake's Infinite Belly expansion consists of a purely biological domain. The domain is Jake himself. When he expands it, he doesn't create an external barrier, he swallows the environment. The floor, the walls, and the ceiling are made of Jake's elastic yellowish skin. Jake controls the size, density, and gravity of everything inside him. Jake can manifest fists, mouths, or spikes on any square centimeter of the domain. The enemy is literally fighting against the world. Any object that Jake imagines inside the domain takes physical form, consuming his energy, but creating lethal distractions. However, if the enemy causes massive structural damage to the walls of the domain, Jake feels the pain directly in his internal organs. It's a double-edged sword. When it comes to hero cartoons, we can't forget the great Samurai Jack, whose domain expansion will be the warrior's silence. The domain doesn't attack the physical body immediately. Instead, it synchronizes the opponent's mind with Jack's perception of time. The enemy is bombarded with the sensory experience of decades of isolation, exhaustion, and Jack's unwavering determination. This causes cognitive paralysis. The target's brain processes time so slowly that a second feels like a century, leaving them catatonic. Within this domain, any movement that isn't perfect or necessary triggers spiritual friction. If the opponent tries a sloppy or desperate attack, the domain cuts off the movement before it even happens, causing real wounds to appear on the target's body. It's a game of patience. Whoever moves first without precision dies. In this domain, Jack makes a binding vow with his sword where he ignores any defensive curse technique such as Gojo's Infinity or Energy Armors. The blade only cuts what is considered evil. If the target has even a hint of murderous intent or negative energy, Jack's sword goes through them as if they were smoke. To maintain such an absolute domain, Jack gives up his sight. He fights with his eyes closed, a reference to the Blind Archers episode. In return, his hearing and perception of cursed energy becomes so sharp that he can predict the enemy's intentions even before they are formed in their mind. Now this is a samurai's true domain. However, unlike Jack's focused and calm domain, Mordecai and Rigby's domain, the surreal chaos spark, aims to be as crazy as possible. A non-lethal rules-based domain similar to Hiromi Higuruma's, where physical combat is replaced by a completely twisted game logic. When a distorted and psychedelic version of the park, where the clock always shows it's time to leave, appears. The fighters are not bound by the laws of ordinary reality, they're playing a retro video game. In this case, they are the characters and the park is the background setting. As soon as the domain forms, a giant HP bar appears above the opponent's head and Mordecai Rigby's. Mordecai and Rigby share the same health bar, but they have infinite cursed energy and mana bars. They're the game's hackers. They can use the cheat code as much as they want, materializing their cosmic and absurd weapons from the cartoon right into their hands. Like the keyboard, the power that allows them to temporarily rewrite the geography of the domain. They can play a chord and summon pixel black holes or send the opponent's attack to the moon. With the ultimate gauntlet and the fists of justice, they turn hand-to-hand combat into something on a special grade level. Rigby's punch using the ultimate gauntlet distorts space, breaking barriers as if they were glass. Besides that, it's insane. When they land a 5-hit combo on the enemy, they activate the Mortal Kondo aura for a whole minute. Any physical attack gains the effect of a deadly punch, ignoring the target's base defense and causing massive internal damage marked by a miniature atomic explosion. In addition, the domain has the boss rule. If the opponent withstands the basic attacks and the domain timer reaches 5 minutes, the boss phase is activated. Mordecai and Rigby merge with giant summons, like the Baby Duck robot or the Galactic Basketball Gods. The domain turns into a bullet hell game, a real hail of gunfire where the opponent has to dodge lasers in front of an antimatter that fills 90% of the space. For the domain to force the opponent to play by their rules and allow the use of so many divine weapons, there is a fatal risk condition, the 3 lives. If the opponent manages to deplete Mordecai and Rigby's HP bar, they lose a life, just like in a video game, and become vulnerable to real attacks for 10 seconds before respawning. If they lose all 3 lives, the domain explodes and they completely lose their cursed energy and become totally physically exhausted. We're getting to the final characters of this video. Have you managed to guess the next domain expansions that are coming up? Well, while you think about it, I want to ask you to like this video. It's really important that you support the video with a like so it reaches true anime fans. And don't forget to hype up the video. I really want to see otaku culture when they see the crazy stuff we're doing here. Let's move on to Gumball and Darby's expansion. The Elmore Void, a static horizon of computer glitz, with floating pieces of Elmore School and saturated colors, appears within the domain. Gumball and Darwin are immune to fatal damage because the cartoon can't end. Any attack that should kill them is turned into a comedic injury that heals in seconds. Gumball holds a universal remote control. He can pause the enemy, rewind their healing, or fast forward time so the opponent becomes instantly exhausted. Every 30 seconds, the animation style of the domain changes to styles like 3D, stop motion, chalk drawn, puppet animation, and others. The enemy must adapt their technique to the new physics of the current style, or they will suffer a slowing penalty. This helps maintain control over the void. A binding vow is made with Darwin. He has to remain the voice of conscience. If Darwin is knocked out or goes silent, the domain collapses and Gumball himself starts to be erased from reality. The Toon Force is really OP, and the one who knows how to use it perfectly is the Mask. With his Neon Brothel domain, Someone Hold Me Back. In his domain, all the laws of inertia, gravity, and biology are nullified. If the Mask draws a door on the wall, it becomes a real exit. If he blows up a balloon in the shape of a machine gun, real bullets come out. But you know what's even more absurd? The Mask can't be hurt by attacks that aren't funny. If the enemy attacks with anything, whether it's swords, rifle bullets, or something serious like a serious and dark domain expansion, the damage is reduced to 0 and turned into confetti. The enemy is forced to take part in comedy sketches. If he doesn't make the audience or the shadows of the domain laugh, he gets hit in the face with a pie that weighs as much as a mountain. And don't even start saying this is too OP. The Mask has always been overpowered with his Toon Force, but no one is better than Woodpecker at manipulating reality with his Toon Force. So did you guess that this was the final character of this video? Check out the domain expansion. Tree of 1,000 Trolls consists of an infinite forest of pine trees, where gravity changes according to Woody Woodpecker's laughter. Everything in this scene seems to have been carved with pecking blows. Every time Woody Woodpecker lets out his iconic laugh, the enemy suffers an invisible blow directly to the nervous system. It's a soul attack that generates such great frustration that it prevents the opponent from focusing their cursed energy. Inside the domain, Woody Woodpecker moves at the speed of sound, leaving trails of destruction. He can pierce the barrier of his own domain to exit and enter at different points, making it impossible for him to be cornered. If the enemy tries to use a weapon, it turns into a boomerang that always comes back to hit the user themselves. If they use firepower, a giant fire hose appears out of nowhere to put it out. The domain only disappears when the opponent admits defeat or loses their sanity. If the enemy tries to ignore Woody Woodpecker, the environment starts to shrink, squeezing the opponent. The opponent, the bird's sharp beak, is a domain that would really drive Leoncio crazy. Well, these were the domains of each cartoon. If they were real, at least for me, I want you to comment which character was missing a domain here. Who knows, maybe we can do part 2 with Rick and Morty, Bugs Bunny, Uncle Grandpa, and many others. I picked out these videos here for you to watch. I guarantee you're going to love them. I'll see you there, otaku.